Tourism is one of those sectors which is truly global and cuts across conflict, economies, culture, and also climate. Yet, it remains completely underrated as a tool for global cooperation. We are here today because the race for the next Secretary General of United Nations Tourism is underway, and 160 countries around the world are going to cast their vote for what is arguably the most powerful, the most influential, and definitely the most complex leadership role in global tourism. Even as the Secretary General is based in the headquarters in Madrid, the UN Secretary General doesn't lead a single project, a destination, a country, or even a region, because that person is dealing with 160 countries around the world, heads of states, ministers of foreign affairs, ministers of tourism, and doing a delicate dance of around or across a minefield of geopolitics. There are 6 candidates in the race, from Georgia, Mexico, Ghana, Tunisia, UAE, and Greece. But this isn't a job for the faint-hearted, and it requires a lot more than a track record. It demands courage. It demands someone who's willing to call the fluff, cut through the noise, and lead real transformation. To quote the press, UN tourism has become a stage for performative projects, empty communiques, and conferences with no real follow-throughs, when what the world really needs now is urgency, clarity, and bold leadership. He once called tourism the soft superpower of the 21st century. He's running not just to win, but to reform and rewire the system. And he's gaining serious momentum, with backing from Europe, Asia, Africa, the Middle East, and a groundswell of support here in Saudi Arabia. Will he be the man to finally get tourism the seat it has been long denied at the global table? Please put your hands together and welcome on stage for this major FHS coup, former engineer, technocrat, CIO at Lehman Brothers, former Deputy Minister of Finance, former Minister of Tourism for Greece, and front-runner candidate for Secretary General of UN Tourism, Harry Theoharis.
What can I say after that?
Welcome, Harry.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Aradhana, for having me here.
Harry, you were the head of the tax administration during the Greek debt crisis. You were the minister.
You had to remind everyone of that, didn't you?
It was the worst the country had ever been through, where you nearly lost your sovereignty.
Sure.
You were the minister of tourism during COVID, which was perhaps the worst that any country has been through. And you not only didn't steer the country out of the crisis, correct me if I'm wrong, but Greece staged the fastest recovery on record from COVID.
Yeah.
You've already done what most people would say is enough, and a lot of people would stop at this time. But here you are, chasing a bigger battlefield, which is a lot more complex, and it's global tourism.
Sure.
Why are you stepping into a system which is often called slow, bureaucratic, and full of geopolitical, drama, if I may? Why do you want to be the next Secretary General?
Well, first of all, because you cannot stand on the sidelines when you see the problems that you described. We're here to make a mark. We're here to affect change. And unless we grasp the opportunities that life affords us to make that change for our people, for our generation, but also for the future generations, then I think we're failing at our role. I've seen firsthand the strength and the power that tourism can have. In Greece's darkest hour, during the financial crisis, it was tourism that led the recovery and allowed the young population of Greeks to have dignity by having a job and having the ability to sustain themselves. I've seen how important tourism is during COVID, when tourism was not allowed. I was minister for an illegal activity back then. It was not allowed to travel. So we saw the world without tourism, and it's not a world we would like to go back to. But also I've seen tourism done wrong. I've seen communities not being empowered by tourism, and actually being antithetical to tourists. I've seen local people fighting against tourists or mobilizing against them. So we need to ensure that we both realize the potential that tourism has for the good of our communities and our regions, and at the same time we need to avoid the mistakes and the pitfalls and the problems that some destinations are accustomed to.
You're all correct on tourism, but on the other hand, it's equally true that there are 160 member states who are not looking for more handshakes and ceremonial declarations.
Sure.
They want a system that delivers, scale with purpose and integrity. You're running on the mandate of reform to transform, unite to grow. And you claim it presents a survival kit for an institution that risks fading into irrelevance unless we take bold, immediate action.
Yeah, well, I've seen it. I've been talking to leaders, both from the private sector and from the public sector, and I see that UN tourism has not succeeded in ensuring that both itself as an organization and tourism as an activity sits at the highest tables like it should. And that is a failure that starts and begins first and foremost with the organization itself. So we need to reform it if we are to have the ambition to transform the tourism community in a more sustainable or regenerative future. So transforming the organization, ensuring that it's taken away from the bureaucracy which currently leads and is given back to the member states in order to create value, in order to be the partner, the strategic partner that will allow them to realize the touristic development goals that they set for the benefit of their own people. Then unless we do that, use digital tools, use KPIs, use all those tools that management, schools are teaching us, but unfortunately are absent from the organization, then we will not begin to tackle the big problems that we have to tackle in the next few years.
Can the system be changed from within, though? Or are we talking about a complete overhaul?
There's no other way but to actually change it from within. Tourism cannot afford the luxury of just pressing the pause button, rebuilding everything. We need to not burn the house down, but we need to rewire the electricity. So that means that we need to sit down, talk to the member states, engage them, have meaningful regional rotation in the different committees and organs of the organization, and ensure that their needs, their requirements are heard, and not just heard, but actually acted upon. So this is a lofty task, but it's a task that can only be done with the cooperation and the unity that the member states and the multilateral organizations have to bring to the table.
Unity.
Yes.
And I want to pick up on that because that's your second part of the slogan, unite to grow. It's, again, another bold statement for an industry that is highly fragmented across regions, across income levels, and of course, across capacity. How do we see unity in action? Sure.
Well, first of all, we have to realize and embrace fragmentation for what it is and how important it is. Tourism is a tradable industry, is an industry that's international in nature. So competition and fragmentation is part of the game. We have to embrace it. But we've seen in the last few years systemic fragmentation, which we did not see up to now, and unfortunately UN tourism is still stuck to the previous era. The requirement was for marketing, thirst for share of voice, connectivity, ability to attract tourists, etc., etc. Now we see a systemic fragmentation between destinations. We see emerging destinations still in this logic of thirst for growth, and we need to help them, of course, because that's a requirement so that their communities prosper. But also we see destinations that are developed struggling with management of the growth, whether that's the flows, whether that's the connection that for the first time short-term rental is bringing to the housing market. We have the tourism industry and the housing market for the first time connected. And the housing market is a very socially and politically sensitive. I'm an active politician. You saw that I'm a member of parliament currently in Greece. So I know that the rent prices can bring down governments. So suddenly, tourism has an effect on those rent prices, has an effect on the house prices. So we need to deal with those issues. We need to have an organization that's forward-looking, that anticipates the problems, and issues policy recommendations based on academic research. So we know that Greece has taken some measures on XYZ. Same thing applies to France, the same thing applies to New York or Barcelona or whatever. Unless we assess academically what those solutions, what effect those solutions had, and advise under what circumstances our member states should implement those solutions, then we're failing in our mandate. Case in point, I'm not going to go into it, but I'll just say the title. Case in point, Trump tariffs. He's coming tomorrow, I think, here in Saudi Arabia. It's obvious that the economic landscape, the economic environment is totally different compared to a couple of months ago. So unless we assess the modes of effect of those tariffs to the touristic product and advise our member states, I think, again, we're failing our mission.
Speaking of problems and issues, what would you name are the three biggest problems in global tourism, or the three biggest challenges as we speak?
Well, number one, of course, is transition, sustainability, to ensure that we're not part of the problem, but part of the solution. Tourism should not be seen as part of the problem, and unfortunately, in many corners of the world, this is still a case. The second issue for me is education. We need educated workforce. We have a lack of sexiness for the tourism sector. Increasingly, young people in Greece, young people in Europe do not see the tourism career path as a viable or as a sexy career path for them. They feel that the conditions are not right for their engagement in the sector. But at the same time, this can be true for the young population of Africa, for the young population of the Middle East and elsewhere, because those are career paths that for them are not realizable now. We just saw the 1 million new jobs that Saudi Arabia is planning to do as part of their Vision 2030. So that's important. And I think the third issue that I would like to mention is that we see more and more lack of cooperation. So we need this fragmentation that I mentioned before is something that we need to deal with, I would say, urgently.
Speaking of Saudi Arabia, Harry, you met the minister this morning. Saudi Arabia is making bold moves to transform with planned investment to the tune of $1 trillion by 2030, and a large portion is going towards hospitality and tourism. With such ambitious plans underway, what role do you see Saudi play in the global tourism landscape?
Well, Saudi Arabia is always, if not anything, ambitious. And I think that's really a defining characteristic of their plans. Their tourism plans, if anything, are one of the biggest success stories. And under the stewardship of His Excellency Ahmed Al-Khatib, we've seen Saudi Arabia transform itself from a very specific and niche market of religious tourism, which was the staple of Saudi Arabia, to a very vibrant, very energetic, very young-oriented destination, attuned to the wills of the young population that Saudi Arabia has as well. So it's very much, I think, this resonates with the psyche of the average Saudi. It's also very hopeful, if you like, that such a resourceful country, such a country that's been relying on those huge reserves that he had in the oil sector, has decided that one of the pillars of the post-oil economy that it's trying to shape is tourism. So that shows, I think, for many other countries that don't necessarily have the resources, that this is one of the economic pillars of development that they need to rely upon. So I think, on one hand, we see this ambitiousness, tenacity, and ability to implement, and on the other hand, we see this extroversion. Saudi is engaging with UN tourism, is one of the most active countries, the only country that was, for 2 years in a row, chair of its executive council. So I think it has succeeded in ensuring that it takes center stage in the global tourism stage.
I know we're coming up to a close, so I want to throw a few challenges at you, Harry, from a Middle East and global perspective. I know you're a politician, but no long speeches, just straight answers. It's the rapid fire round. How would you tackle them if elected? Sound okay?
Yep.
Mega projects, mega talent gap.
Yeah. Well, this is a big problem. I mentioned it. But the good thing is that we have two gaps. We have young populations in many regions that don't have avenues for growth and prosperity. And we have big talent gaps in other regions. This is there's a clear-cut case for coordination, for cooperation. So UN tourism's role is important. But we need to work now in order to find solutions in 5 or 10 years' time.
Conflict in the Middle East, because despite regional progress, external perceptions can deter visitors. How can UN tourism help?
Well, conflicts in general. Tourism is the most complex activity. It requires everything underneath to be functioning. It's in the tertiary part of the economy, services. So with conflict, it's one of the presuppositions to enable tourism is missing. At the same time, tourism is a bridge for understanding. If you go for an operation in a different country, then there is no way that you cannot, unless you trust yourself and your body to a foreign doctor, there's no way that you can look at them with the prejudice that many times we see among peoples and nations. So it's a big bridge. We need to work on the ground closely with the forces that prefer to discuss and dialogue in order to ensure that this positive effect of tourism is also realized.
We have lots of luxury projects in the Middle East, in Saudi specifically, but regenerative tourism is still a secondary narrative, but it needs to be front and center. Yeah.
Well, we have to double down, actually. We lost a lot of time in terms of ensuring that we're making the right moves in order to ensure that we put sustainability at the center of tourism development. And on top of that, because we lost the time, we see that we're competing more and more on funding for resilience. We see floods in Valencia, we see fires in Rose, we see hurricanes in Jamaica and in Puerto Rico, meaning that a lot of funds have to be used for reconstruction instead of sustainability, et cetera, et cetera. At the same time, we're not talking enough about regeneration. We're trying to achieve net zero, meaning that operationally we don't do more harm, and that is what sustainability is all about. But really, we need to use the operations to recover the damage done during the development phase of the project. So we need to regenerate the environment as well. So there's a lot of things that we have to be doing, and we're failing. Well, I don't want to say miserably, but certainly we're failing.
The top 3 untapped tourism segments in the Middle East?
Well, I don't think it's a matter of untapped segments. I think it's a matter, and this is the experience that I get from Greece's successes and how we achieve them, is more about creating synergies in the markets that are already achieving well. So religious tourism in the Middle East is important. Wellness tourism is important. Ecotourism is important. We need to take this as the basis and create the synergies and extend the days, extend the experiences so that you don't just go for Umrah or Hajj, but you also take some time and go and find, see the beauties of Saudi Arabia somewhere else.
If you could define the future of Saudi tourism in one sentence, no more.
Well, I think Saudi tourism is a unique, transformative blend of ancient heritage and futuristic vision and innovation. There's no other place like Saudi Arabia where you can see this unique combination, and this is two strengths that, it's two legs that you need to stand on. You cannot run with just one leg, and I think that is a very stable base for its future.
Fantastic answer. Final words, Harry. Why are you the right person right now for this job?
Well, I'm the right person because I'm here to disrupt things. It's high time that we made reforms. And I can say, if you like, safely, having one of the most diverse experiences, because I come from the digital sector. I've been a software engineer all my life. I have the finance experience, 10 years in the Ministry of Finance in Greece, and I have the touristic experience, so the most diverse CV, if you like, but it's not about CVs. It's really about the willingness, the political will to make changes and to leave a mark. And unless we do it now, I think we will fail in our duty towards the future generations. And I think that plays well with the theme of this conference.
Harry Theoharis, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap. Please do not forget your photo opportunity with the man. The next time you see him, he might be the Secretary General of UN Tourism, in which case he will be not accessible with a very large entourage and perhaps armed bodyguards.